This is the GOAT, by the way. If y'all want to like learn stuff about AI, like just like tech in general and stuff in the web space, Theo is like the guy to watch. So yeah, Theo in 2026. Yeah, we're bringing Theo into 2026. But if you're not, then what are you doing? Like,
Cheated by a crappy AI app and your job can't, then there's a gap between what the job expects and what the interview expects, which means you're doing a bad job interviewing. That's why I always have done interviews quite a bit differently. I specifically try to give options to my candidates because my candidates should have the choice of how they think they would best present their capability. Again, setting them up for success. What process gives them the highest likelihood of succeeding? Obviously,
am I a beginner? I don't know. I would call myself like a intermediate. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, oh yeah, I'm like god dev or whatever. I still have make some mistakes and I'm well aware of them. So I'm always here to just improve, get better, grind more, have fun. That's literally the point of what this is, right?
the choice they make is something I factor in when
So I know system design. Yes, I know some
viewing
form of
them,
system design
and
from just like experiencing it myself.
long term, I don't think the leak code algorithm puzzles are probably something we should include in interviews because they were always bad. I mostly had this option in here for the candidates that tried really hard on these things, that had spent a lot of time skilling up on it, and as a result, felt more comfortable with this. Because again, you want the candidate to be set up for success, and being comfortable is a really big part of that success. So if this is what they're comfortable with, this is what they choose. I give examples of where these types of problems come from, and I said, a pro tip, most of our problems will probably be based on Advent of Code because the team are all Advent of Code players. We all take it way too seriously, and most of my challenges were based some amount around Advent of Code. I describe what we do. I say, remember, our goal isn't to see how fast you write the right answer. We're trying to learn about how you work and communicate because that's what makes you a good candidate.
See, that's fire, because like a lot of interviews, they will not give you that sauce. It's like unspoken, spoken knowledge, right?
I describe the general structure of this interview. There's 15 minutes of general tech plus team experience questions. I give a direct example. 30 to 45 minutes of the code puzzle. I can say it's pseudocode or real code, whatever you prefer. And the remaining time would be used for questions about the company, role expectations, etc. Very, very clear expectations. Nobody coming in for a technical interview would read this and choose it and not know what they're going in for. Option 2, the pragmatist. This is my attempt to do something more like real world work, where I give you a project or a spec or an API and say, implement this part of it. Funny enough, not dissimilar to how I use agents today, where I give the specs, the expectation, what I want the output to be, and then see if the candidate can complete it. Obviously, with how things are structured nowadays, this is a question that could almost certainly be completed by an agent in seconds, but I could also then ask the candidate questions about the code that comes out and how it works. In fact, I would already do that when I worked with these problems with these candidates. When they wrote the code,
For a realistic code problem, we're big fans of making interviews that feels more like work on the job. Like this is really, I feel like pragmatism is like cool, but it might be hard to set up, like with time limits and all that stuff. So, okay, he does talk about like a 15 minutes general attack and 30 to 45 minutes of role related challenge. So I think, okay, that's fine-ish. Problems can be solved within that time frame, so it should be fine.
I would ask them, oh, why did you break out this component? How would you reuse this? How would you make this piece reusable somewhere else? And have the conversation, because that's really what matters with these interviews. You're talking about hiring somebody who's going to work with you every day, somebody who's going to be in your meetings with you, in your Slack with you, at your lunch with you. Your ability to communicate with them is way more important than how many lines of slop they can generate. And then my personal favorite option, the realist. You bring your own repo or project, ideally something open source, and then we shadow you as you work on something for it. So if you have a feature you want to add,
I have never heard about. That's actually kind of a unique way of interviewing people. I've never heard about this, like anybody doing this at all. Wow. Okay.
add to your project a thing you want to build or complete or work on, a bug you want to fix. You send me the repo, you send me information on what you plan to do, and if I think this is a good way to vet your technical skill and communication, then we work on it together.
Wouldn't that be free labor? But this is your own repo, though. This is like your own project, right? This is like your own stuff. You're not like doing stuff for them. Like this is stuff you want to do, rather, and you're just like shadowing you and stuff.
Together for 1 to 2 hours. And by together, I mean you drive and do most of it, and I ask questions throughout. Again, to see what it is like to actually work with
the
you.
main difference with it being like what free labor is, if it's they give you a take home and they're like, okay, just build this entire system, and then we take it when we use it for ourselves, right? So that's like very different.
That's the point of all of these options, including my favorite one, the specialist.
That sounds like a different interview process for a company you apply for. Nice, nice, nice. Realist will expose everything. Yeah. Like if you, they can literally tell if your project is cooked or like or peak from that. They offer to have you work on a project for them. Yeah, that's a take home. And like take homes are a bit controversial because of the fact that they can be considered kind of free labor.
The point here is that if you don't think these
Bro's
ways of
gonna see me take 2 hours on one problem. That happens for me at least. So it's definitely not crazy. Don't worry about it.
interviews work, you can propose your own. If you think you can have your own way to showcase your skills, bring it with you. Show it to me. And I would be hyped to learn. Sadly, I've never had anyone take this option, but also I usually don't hire people that haven't already proven their technical skill. Because if you have a GitHub full of really useful things, or I've interacted with you in the past on different projects, I don't need to do any of this. This all gets thrown away if I already know that you're good. It's kind of ironic that I have what I would consider to be one of the best technical interview processes, and I also don't do technical interviews anymore because I only hire people that have already proven themselves. So despite having one of the best processes, I end up using it the least. But that's part of why I'm putting it out here and continuing to leave it open source and available, because I want more people to think deeply about whether or not their interview process is checking your bullshit.
But this is never gonna change, by the way. It's still gonna be leak code for the next 10 years. Like, it's gonna take a slow change for stuff
Leak
to happen
code
in the
skills,
industry.
or is actually seeing what it's like to work with somebody, because that's what you should be hiring for: compatibility with your team. So I think we've established the current way people do technical interviews is bullshit and should be rethought. Something like this. Obviously, there are parts of this that don't make as much sense anymore, but really focusing in on transparency, clarity, comfort, and communication will make your interviews way better. The candidate should feel like you're on their team, not like you're using a microscope or a magnifying glass to catch every little thing they do wrong. Because this person's going to be on your team. You want them to be supported. Support them through the process. But in order to get that far, you need to get through some other things that are honestly kind of bullshit. Here's where you have to talk about resume slop a bit. Cold applications
Oh shoot.
are just a garbage thing right now. Because every time a job listing goes up, lots of people spam it, hoping to get an in. People will generate resumes using all sorts of tools, fill them with fake information and absolute bullshit.
Oh my god. Resume LARP has to be the peak of everything, bro. People talk about like, optimizing your resume format. All this, like, and they'll like do so much science and math into it. It's like, damn. Does it ever get that serious, bro?
In hopes that they get enough attention to have their name clicked on in the pile of 10,000 names, mind you, all of which are being read by a non-technical recruiter at the company. This stuff just is bullshit. It isn't going to get you a job. Like, do you actually think your resume in this gigantic pile of PDFs is magical enough that
Leak code has probably destroyed more companies, not gonna lie. Yeah, leak code is like, I mean, back then it was like kind of the leak code is kind of like the thing everybody knows kind of sucks, but it's kind of the only thing that's sort of proven itself a little bit, and so we just keep doing it over and over again. And also it's kind of like this sunk cost effective where people just like practice leak code continuously. So if you just stop doing leak code interviews, they're kind of like, oh my god, I just spent my entire life like working on something that doesn't matter anymore, right? The way my resume is only gonna have 3 things, but it's gonna be authentic law. I feel like your resume does kind of need to have stuff on it, but it needs to be really impactful stuff, right? And then if you need to fill up the space, you can LARP, but don't fill your entire thing with just like LARP in general, right?
random recruiter that doesn't know shit about code
It takes the least effort for interviews too, as well. Yeah.
is going to read through it, see yours, and pick you. You need to be realistic about this. Cold apps just don't work anymore. You need to find a way to get in front of a person, ideally a technical one, so they know you're a real human, because the realness and the transparency is now rarer than ever. AI making slop so common means that being genuine and real is now an outstanding angle to have and a lever you can use against all of this bullshit. Things like interacting with posts from engineers at the...
If I make a B2B AI SaaS, will my ex text me back? 100%. 1,000%, bro. Bro, this is the peak life. Make a vertical AI B2B SaaS, move to SF, get bought out by Cluey, get seed funding, 2 to 3 years, post on TikTok, LARP, and then sell out to investors and live your life. Literally.
Companies that you're looking at. Local tech meetups, if you live in a place that have that type of thing, although local tech jobs are a whole fucking mess of their own, but finding ways to get FaceTime.
What if I exit scam the investors instead? Ooh, that might get you in trouble though with the government. But that's still a method though.
Interaction.
So we might as well make our own job. At this point, yeah, just all become founders.
Getting to showcase your comms abilities, learn something, and then get the role. But if you're sitting in my comment section like, I can't get a job, the whole market is fucked. I applied to 500 companies and didn't get a single response. And your definition of application is going to random job listing boards online and finding their hiring sections and submitting a PDF and not even adding anything specific to the company. Of course you're not going to get fucking hired. There are people trying harder than you. Don't think you're going to get handed a job on a silver fucking platter. It's not how this works.
Yeah. You got to grind for it.
And
so it's sad to say, but that's how it is, man, right now.
To their credit, the companies are very largely at fault here. Companies are so bad at hiring that they're still doing it like it's the early 2000s. They're putting up these weird listings on terrible boards that expect you to submit a PDF or docx file in a specific format that nobody even fucking reads, and then has a non-technical person reading through all of it. They deserve the bullshit employees they're getting as a result. You got to work around that. If you're doing all these things right and you're still not getting a job, you should also try and be thankful that the companies you talked to that weren't good didn't accidentally hire you into a role that would suck. That said, you also all need to stop fucking coping. I'm already seeing it in my chat. Is stalking now a genuine job search technique? You deserve your unemployment if you think interacting with people, working at the companies you're interested in, on your shared mutual interests is stalking. Your understanding of basic social norms is so bad that you're not going to get.
This is what I'm saying, bro. Like, in order to succeed nowadays as a comp sci major, you low-key need to max out your social skill stat. You can't just be a guy who sits in the corner and doesn't talk to anybody anymore. It doesn't work like that. Like, at hackathons, you've got to be talking to every single person. You've got to be like, be social and like know people, because human connection has become ever so more important since the age of AI now. So you've got to start like maxing social skill, and it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. As somebody who like previously post pandemic had like terrible social skills, the best way to work up onto it is to just start little by little exposure therapy. Talk to people who you don't really care about. Talk to like your neighbors or whatever. People like who, if they think weird about you, you don't really care about it the next day, right? So slowly build up that confidence until you get to the point where you're just able to talk to people regularly. Put yourself in the spaces where you feel uncomfortable. It's important to feel uncomfortable. You have to in order to progress. So yeah, I would say that's the method for that.
At a job. And it's weird to put it this way. We'll probably talk about this more in the junior section, but your ability to socialize on a basic level went from a nice to have to a borderline essential.
What did I say? Oh my God, bro. I'm reading his mind. All right.
Skill if you want to get a job today. I have a lot more thoughts on why companies suck at hiring, but I'm going to dive into the experienced devs part because I think it'll cover a lot of this as well. It's hard to know which of these numbers is the most real when it comes to what the current state of unemployment and job struggles
I got brain rot, bro. I said unemployment. I started laughing.
Are in the market. Like the info from HackerRank, this 74% number is an interview that they did with their audience. And obviously a platform like HackerRank for getting a job is going to have a different set of numbers than places that are interviewing engineers in general. So I don't know which of these numbers we can really trust. What I do know is that I'm seeing less junior devs on average getting roles.
What's not talked about, most are college students aren't at junior level when they graduate. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Because now this is like a blaming of like multiple systems right now. So let me just like get onto Excalibur and let me explain like at least what, in my perspective, is causing this like issue where college students aren't at junior level when they graduate. So even if we go previously, back in the days, like pre-COVID, all that time, companies kind of expected for you to not be junior level when you like graduated. They kind of expected for them to like have some level of onboarding, right? They had some level of onboarding expected whenever they got somebody onto the job. They just wanted to know if you're capable of learning, right? So now we're in a post-AI world right now. So like we're in like 2026 now. Now companies expect you to be at junior dev level to be able to know how to like program, how to do all this stuff, right? But there's also the fact that nowadays colleges depending on what college you go, you might not get enough knowledge to be at that junior level position, right? So now college kind of like sucks as a way to teach you, right? So it's much more important nowadays for you to have real world experience outside of those college jobs, outside of like just like following your curriculum in class and stuff. So that's why it's kind of hard nowadays for like new grads to be at junior level. And it's also the fact that with AI, you can even skip the college part. You can be like, okay, I'm not going to learn anything. I'm just going to AI everything and go through everything and cheat, and then you're like, oh my god, I don't know shit, right? So it's far more easier to fall into the trap of not knowing anything, and there's a lot more effort needed to even like get an actual job. Nowadays, most people are learning on their own rather than relying on school. Yeah, literally. My uni CS program was literally the foundational stuff, leaving out the basically needs a boot camp and more. Yeah. So like a bunch of uni's curriculums are just like behind on the times, or they expect you to like take what they give you and go the extra mile with it. And it just kind of sucks that it's the way it is, that you're paying upwards to what, $20,000 a year to go to a college and then not end out with a job. That's scary. That is just scary. So it honestly just sucks the way things are right now. It's honestly just hot garbage. So I don't blame anyone from like doing anything else. In my senior capstone, just 3 of my classmates didn't do a lot with CS. Yeah, like I noticed like at the high school level, but I'm gonna give you some context. In my high school CS class, right? This is like the final level of like CS. And I can guarantee you that 70% of that class was not doing the project by themselves. They were all AIing it, right? So imagine just how much exacerbated it would be in college when like there is like life on the line. People will take shortcuts like this to get what they need, right? And those shortcuts are gonna like impact them in the long run. I wonder if this is happening with any majors like EE or mechanical. I honestly don't know. Like look genuinely, because like the thing is with EE and mechanical, you can't really like LARP your way through it. Like you can't really AI through the entire process. At some point, you're gonna like be faced with the entire world and gonna be like, wow, that's cooked. And of course, mechanical engineering does not change that much, right? Software engineering is like we're changing every year. Every year something new is popping up. Every year you're expected to be on the bleeding edge. So it's very different with electrical engineering and mech E, because like these are like, it's like physics. Physics changes a little bit, but like you still have the basis to learn a lot, right? They're not changing as rapidly as tech is changing every single year, right?
How they go out and do interviews and they're performing in them slightly worse than they did when they first got jobs 5 or 6 years ago, because they haven't refined the skill at all since. And that's not the only skill they haven't refined. Once you've had a job for a while, your willingness to learn almost inherently starts to go down. As your job gets more and more specific internally, your likelihood of exploring other things outside of the job inherently goes down. And if you're at one of those companies that isn't letting you use AI tools internally, you're probably falling behind in that regard too, which is terrifying, because those junior devs that don't have jobs don't have any of those restrictions on them. You need to put more.
The power of being unemployed. Nobody talks about it. The power of being unemployed and having so much free time to just fuck around without any consequences. That's why I'm enjoying my life right now. This is peak life. I architectured my college schedule to give me the most amount of free time, just because I want to do bullshit like this, right?
What languages have what compromises, what libraries do and don't make sense, how you deal with outages at a company, all those types of things, but also role-specific capabilities and company-specific capabilities. They don't have the institutional knowledge of how your business operates. Whereas an existing senior dev at your company has lots of capability. They have years of experience that are both generic in terms of how things work, but also specific in terms of how your company works. But their energy and their willingness to learn new things has gone down as a result. There's always a trade-off here. The better somebody knows how to build, and more importantly, how to work at your business, the lower their ability is to go try other things and experiment and explore. And balancing these two things over time is essential as a business trying to operate.
I low-key want to be that one guy eventually who's like a senior but still has energy. I don't know if that's like plausible, but I'm going to try my best to live out my heyday until I burn and eventually like fade out. But my goal is to be both of these at the same time eventually. How's it going, Apa? Impossible? Hey, it's impossible. But it could be possible, right? With me. Nothing's impossible with me. Just like tap it in.
Long term. The real win is when you find ways to get energy transferred effectively from juniors to seniors. And the trade-off is that the senior engineers get excited working with and hanging with those junior engineers.
Ooh. You see, the thing is now, what I'll do is I'll have 2 personalities in my brain. I have a junior dev personality, I have a senior dev personality, and those 2 personalities will like transfer energy, and that's how it's going to work.
juniors,
The plan
and
has
they
been made.
inherently pass some of their capability onto the juniors. Once you can build that type of relationship as a business, that's when things really start to go crazy. When the seniors trade their capability for the juniors' energy and everything feeds in and you grow. This is why people like Dan Abramov used to brand themselves as a junior for life, because they wanted to maintain their energy more than anything. And is the only right way.
You're welcome. I come across this live every day. It pushes me to grind coding. Lol. Just started Python a few weeks back. That's what I really do want to do. I do want to like breathe life like back into CS, because I feel like the entire space right now is a lot of like a fear mongering and like doom and gloom, and I feel like we kind of need like some kind of North Star of like what we want to do. And I'm not saying I'm gonna be the North Star. I'm just trying to like enable everyone to like be able to know that, hey, if I lock in and like really do put in my passion and my energy, I will get some kind of results out of this, right? So that's essentially what I'm here for. So it's nice knowing that thank me. Let me have one of those $300 RAM. No, I'm not giving you my RAM, twin. This is my RAM for a reason.
Doing things, you might be right, but it doesn't matter how right you are if you can't convince anybody. So if you're going to compete with AI slop being churned out by these Claude Code kids that have never written a real line of code, you better be able to explain why your stuff is better. Getting better at communication and explaining your ideas has never been more important, and historically hasn't even been that valuable as a developer. Now that that has shifted, you need to present yourself differently. Do more presentations internally. Take more time to document things, to write internal blog posts about things, to see if some of those blog posts can be published externally to discuss your engineering learnings as a business. Find ways and incentives.
You know, one thing I found is that whenever I was working on Icarus, like very, very, very early on, I actually like wrote like blogs and stuff, right? And I found like it was very, very helpful on like me solidifying what I've learned, the changes I've made, and all that stuff. And I feel like everybody should do this once in a while. Like whenever you're working on a project, just write docs, write not docs necessarily, write a blog, talk about it in general. Even though nobody's gonna be reading it, it's like kind of a good way to go back and see how you were thinking like back in the days, and how your approach to stuff might have changed, and what conflicts are between those ideologies, right? Because it's really, really important. So yeah.
To better your communication skills, because otherwise you will lose to the AI whether or not it is better, because you can't properly communicate why you're right. And I promise you, almost all of the people I am thinking of here, the ones who are experienced devs who can make great code that are struggling to get jobs, 100% of the time suck at communication. You have to get over that. Not being able to clearly describe what you're doing and why was only acceptable because of the nature of code being novel enough.
Yeah. I think my communication is also kind of L as well, but it's like, I don't know whether or not I'm LARPing this or not, because I feel like my mind just like abstracts a bunch of stuff, and then trying to explain things to, like, for example, like my roommate or my mom, it's kind of like, oh, how many layers of abstraction do I need to like take this down or not for them to be able to understand what I'm talking about, right?
You're past that point, get over your shit. But now we need to talk about the thing most of y'all are here for. Junior dev.
It's us time. It's us time, guys. We're all gonna get cooked here. This is the time we're getting cooked. Oh, but he goes on this for 30 more. Oh my God, we're cooked. We're cooked. All right.
It's tough out there. I won't pretend otherwise. Getting the attention of an experienced enough dev to even be considered is not easy. We need to do things a bit differently and use every lever you have. But before we can start doing things right,
what do I think about Python and Java combo for SWE? I think it's fire. Like it's pretty good. All right.
We have to stop doing things wrong. Let's go through.
Thanks for the subscription, Mr. Lacarte.
The most common mistakes I see with earlier career devs. I already talked about the cold apps. Cold applying to random companies with.
What did I say about code apps? What did I say about? Oh my God! Wait, I might be reading
shitty resumes that you generated on ChatGPT is not going to get you anywhere. And no, a handcrafted one isn't going to get you that much further. Cold apps are dead. There's just too much shit going in. You need some way to stand out from it. And the way you stand out isn't anything you can put on the resume. It's humans. It needs to feel more real. I've said this for a while, but the biggest differentiator in everything, but especially hiring, is trust. You need to find ways to build trust. If you're an early career dev, we can't trust your job history because it's not there. So we need other things we can trust. Things we can trust include somebody at the company thinking you're pretty good, somebody recognizing one of the libraries you use.
And trust, I would tell you the easiest way to farm trust as a what is it? As a entry level person, at least that's what I've seen. It's like go to events, for example, hackathons. Just talk to the people at the booths. Just talk to them about like whatever they're doing, whatever they're interested in. Like just chat with them on a personal level, and that's how you farm trust very easily. I have gotten many referrals. Let's see, oh yeah, like Dara, just like apply through this link, and like we'll get you at the company. But I just like, of course I couldn't do it because I already had like something with Amazon, right? But like still, like I've gotten so many opportunities from just like talking to people, right? It's really important.
Somebody reading one of your blog posts and realizing that.
And also, don't talk with them like as a means to win and saying, like, okay, can you like look at my resume real quick? Like, no. Like, talk to them as an actual person. Like, these are actual people. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah,
it's relevant to their work. Whatever you can do to build up trust is going to be key. Remember that we'll be talking a lot more about trust in a bit. So cold apps suck. Don't expect that to be a thing that will.
How do you go from a vibe coder who understands systems to being trusted as a dev? Yeah, I think this is a huge thing I haven't been able to yet wrap my head around is how do people transfer from like vibe coding to like actually knowing like what they're doing, right? And I would say trust would probably be through good projects and like good impact, and just necessary like social skills and getting your voice out there would be created through that. But again, I know this vibe coder. Hopefully doesn't get mad at me for. I don't think he get mad at me for shouting him out. But this kid I know, his name is Leo. He's building amazing things at what like 16, 15, and the way I've seen him build trust with developers is simply by putting his work out there. Like, he's currently working on like is it Open Chat or whatever. Leo is a dev. Let me search it up. Yep, he's working on OSS Chat, and he does a good amount of work of just putting his project out there and talking about the stuff he encounters with, and overall like showing that he cares about stuff, right? So this is what he's working on right now. It's like he's participating in his communities. He's like talking to people and stuff, like, which is really, I think really important. So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I don't let them feel you. You need a job from them. So what am I doing? I'm watching a video on our junior dev screwed, so basically us, and I'm giving my opinion on this, and I'm also like trying to like see what insights we can get to adjust our frame of reference, and all that honestly help me give better advice to people as well, because I kind of went through like a separate way from people would typically go through. What's up, bro? Would you consider looking into my app, Trading Pal on App Store? Send it to Discord. I'll definitely look at it probably tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. I'll be able to look at it tomorrow. So hit me up on Discord. I'll look at it tomorrow and I'll ping you whenever I'm streaming on that. All right.
Get you anywhere. Your professor sucks too. This is another.
Please add the link to the YouTube video. I'll put it in general. So if you hop in general in the VC, I'm gonna drop it right there. Or whatever.
A really important thing to understand. Something I've seen a lot of is earlier career
Oh my God,
devs.
your professor sucked too. What did I say? Yo, Theo's just reading my mind, chat.
Or people fresh out of college, and the best dev they've ever known was their professor. The harsh reality is that your professor's almost certainly not a very good dev, because most professors make less money than good devs. And if your professor is teaching, it's probably because they didn't like doing, they didn't do well with the doing, or they got tired of it for some reason. And I can't tell you how many times I saw in college that my peers were running circles around my professors. And I was lucky that my professors largely understood this. They knew their experience was really behind, and they leaned on the students that were most excited, most energized, and most ready to teach those things to guide us towards what the most useful things were. Your professor can teach you a lot about how to think technically about problems, but they will not teach you how to get a job. They will not teach you what working in the industry looks like today. They will certainly not teach you about getting ahead of your peers in a way that makes you more likely to succeed beyond giving you homework that you're probably using AI to cheat on anyways. Your professor is...
He knows. Well, if you really want to learn and really break into tech, you won't lean on a professor. That's just my opinion. Yeah. And that's also because like the curriculum is kind of outdated. Like as I said earlier, it's just not really. You've got to put in work outside of college. It's a mandatory thing now. Like it's not even like it's not optional. Like even if you go to, I would say, a Ivy League level school of like computer science, you still need to put work outside. Like you just can't like solely depend on college.
Is not going to give you the pieces you need and the knowledge you need to get your job. Another common mistake I see is obsessing over qualifications. And I understand.
Oh my god. Certificate lab riping. This is certificate LARPing right there.
Why this happens. In order to get into college in the first place, you needed to have all of these crazy accolades on your application. Like you were the head of some club at your school, or you had this experience working this specific charity, or you had really high grades, you got the perfect score on the SAT, all those types of things. That shit does not matter anymore. It barely did before, and it does not matter now. Chasing prestige, chasing accolades, chasing these qualifications is not going to help. And going and getting some random certification from Microsoft that you're Azure certified.
What did I say?
Or Office certified. None of that shit matters. I don't know anyone who's hired anybody in the last 10 years based on their qualifications in those senses. They are hiring based on the fact that they are potentially good fits for the team. That is it. And now for the thing that will likely be the topic for most of the rest of the video. Outsourcing your learning via AI. Or put differently, avoiding
This might be really, really important, guys.
learning with AI. Feeling dumb sucks. Humans optimize their lives to avoid it. And it makes sense why, like biologically speaking, if you have the option between two foods, one that you're familiar with, have eaten a lot, and know is safe, and one that you've never seen before or tried before, the one you've never tried could be poisonous. So obviously you don't want to try it. The fact that you don't understand it makes you inherently averse to it. But the harsh reality about software engineering is that you are at your best when you feel kind of dumb.
Yeah. This is like very important. Whenever like you see me like on stream or whatever, and you guys are asking me, yo, Dara, why aren't you using AI? It's because I want to suffer through the process. Like when I was learning hightail modding, I could have clawed my way through the entire process, but like the process of like just going through and hitting my head on the wall and like going back and doing some research and then figuring things out slowly is really, really important because you need to learn this stuff. Like you like look, genuinely, you want to never ever be the smartest person in the room. Okay, you never want to learn being smart. You always want to come to terms like, okay, I'm stupid, but how can I improve this? How can I go to that person and learn better, right? You want to feel like Vlado said, you want to feel dumb 24/7, right?
That's when you are pushing past your experience, past your expertise, and building yourself up and growing. Does this mean you should avoid using AI tools? No. Notice my wording here. Avoiding learning with AI is the key. Not that you should avoid learning with AI, but this is a thing that you are probably doing right now. When you run into a problem and you don't understand it, you use the AI to work around it or to have it solve it for you, and you don't improve your own understanding at all. You are averse to this feeling of being unsure or clueless, and rather than embrace it and spend time in it and resolve it, you outsource it so you don't have to spend any time in it. And that keeps you from building up skills that are valuable. To contradict myself a little bit here, HTMX is a project that is largely by a professor. His name's Carson. He's great. Carson thinks a lot about how we
I don't totally agree with him. I agree partially. What's your opinion on that?
learn. And he knows that his students are going to use AI tools. Instead of just letting them cheat on all their homework with that, he actually goes the other way. He knows that the students are going to be using these types of AI tools, so he instead hands them an agent MD file. If you're not familiar, an agent MD file or a Claude MD file steers the agent by putting something at the start of the context that gives it instructions on how to operate generally. Here is said agent MD. Primary role is teaching assistant, not code generator. AI agents should function as teaching aids that help students learn.
You can't learn with AI. You can ask AI to explain stuff, but you can't really understand, and don't let it type code or do what you're planning. Yeah, that is true.
Through explanation,
literally what he
guidance,
said,
and feedback, not by solving problems for them. I see that M-dash, you generated this, didn't you, you sly fox? What agents should do: explain concepts where students are confused, point students to relevant lecture materials or documentation, review code that students have written and suggest improvements, help debug by asking guiding questions rather than providing fixes, explain error messages and what they mean, suggest approaches or algorithms at a high level, provide small code examples that are 2 to 5 lines to illustrate specific concepts, help students understand assembly instructions and register usage. That one's a bit of a reach, but I understand. And explain memory layouts and pointer arithmetic when asked. What agents shouldn't do: write entire functions or complete implementations, generate full
You
solutions
know
to
what? I'm gonna steal this agent.md, guys. I'm actually gonna steal this. I'm gonna use it for school.
assignments, complete to-do sections in assignment code, refactor large portions of student code, provide solutions to quiz or exam questions, write more than a few lines of code.
I do that usually explicitly say not to give them any code and just ideas and direction. Yeah, that's why I like to use whenever I'm using GPT in like Cursor, I always go in ask mode. Never ever am I going in agent mode because like I really do want to understand why is this wrong. Like I genuinely do want to understand that, and not knowing that makes me kind of feel powerless and makes me feel like, oh, I'm gonna just fail in the future if I just don't do this right now.
At once, convert requirements directly into working code. It gives guides on the teaching approach, on how it should give good code examples, and then the classic, this belongs in any good agentmd or guiding file, examples of what good looks like and examples of what bad looks like. And to be clear, he doesn't enforce this in his courses. He wrote this and published it and recommends it, saying, look, here are the guardrails. I can't make you use the guardrails. If you want to be a good programmer, though, you should use these guardrails. He moved everything to in-person on paper to make it harder for people to cheat with AI, yada, yada, adapt, improvise, readapt. Love this framing. In particular, this is one of the things I love about Carson. He constantly is reflecting on what isn't working, and instead of rejecting the norms and rejecting where things are going, he finds ways to adapt them to better fit into his role, which is setting his students up for success. I wish we had more professors like him. He is very, very good at this. But I will contradict him a tiny bit here. Not in this and using it for his coursework. Absolutely. If you're taking a course from him or someone like him, highly recommend for all the coursework you use an agentmd like this and you follow the rules accordingly. This will make you much more likely to succeed. But at the same time, you have a really unique lever you can be using right now. Here's where we're going to start talking about the things you should do instead.
All right, guys, start taking notes.
Before we can do that, though, I want to go on one of my personal favorite tangents. We're going to talk about mobile applications for a little bit. If you are younger, as in like a Gen Z that's going through college or finishing it up right now, some of the points I'm about to make might date me a lot. I know I'm about to unk status myself hard, but hear me out, okay? Imagine back in the day, you see mobile phones suddenly getting really good. Historically, we've used computers for everything. I know you guys are learning how to use computers now in college, but we used to have to do it in elementary school. And no, I'm not talking about a Chromebook. I'm talking about an actual computer with files where we would plug in flash drives and floppy disks, if you remember what those are.
I remember back in the days, they used to like teach us how to use like Windows laptops as well. But like, again, I'm not like that much, but like back in elementary school, I would say.
Suddenly, mobile phones started to get way more powerful. They could do more. They could send emails. They could browse the web. They got really powerful, and it happened really quickly. And you see an obvious trend here. You know the future. It's clear. We're going to be using computers less and our phones more. Why would we reach for a gigantic
Am I using Linux? No, right now I have my Windows installation, but it's kind of like riced out. So this is what like my home screen kind of looks like right now. So yeah. So eventually I will switch to Linux like next 2 weeks or whatever, whenever I eventually buy a second drive so I can like dual boot. So yeah.
Top in our bag when we could just pull out our phone and do the thing. And you want to bet on the future. You're scared of falling behind, and you know this is what's going to happen. So regardless of how much experience you have, what work you're doing, you decide it's time to go all in on mobile. So you drop everything to build Java applets for the Nokia Sidekick.
Oh, this is UNC level. I vividly remember this.
This is kind of funny in retrospect, but at the time, it was pretty clear more and more things were going to move to mobile. And if you didn't want to fall behind, it made a lot of sense to go put all of your effort and time into building things for mobile phones. So you would build for Sidekicks or Blackberries or the things that were popular at the
BlackBerry. Oh my god, that's unclever. I remember I used to play with my dad. I used to play games with my dad. My dad's a BlackBerry, bruh. And I had like that the little thing in the bottom where you can like scroll with it. Oh my god, that was peak.
The time. All of which together had less than 5% of the global phone market share, because smartphones, as we knew them, these types of devices, just weren't that popular. The hope was that long-term they would become more popular, and they did, but they got more popular in a very different fashion. They didn't look like this. It looked like the phone you're watching this on, the iPhone. The iPhone changed everything, and when the iPhone first dropped, they didn't even have an app store. All they had was HTML5 and web apps that were inherently really limited. About a year and a half after the iPhone dropped, they realized they needed to let you build real apps, so they put out an SDK and an app store. But think about this for a second. The Sidekick came out in 2002, and lots of new versions came out over the next few years. The original iPhone was 2007.
Damn, the year I was born. I really am just like a youngin.
Years later. Now imagine you spent 5 years going all in on Sidekick development, on BlackBerry development, on Nokia development, building for all these weird bespoke proprietary operating systems. And then the iPhone comes out, takes half the market, 50x what you thought was even possible, but all your experience is building apps for these old, dated, archaic platforms. You don't even know how to interface with a
I would crash out. I would look genuinely crash out.
touchscreen properly. You're switching languages, you're switching ecosystems, you're switching operating systems, you're switching user experiences, you're switching expectations. Everything changes going from Nokia dev to iPhone dev. So effectively what happened there is you just wasted years of experience, and it'll take you even more time to unlearn it. So let's think about this. Who's better off? A developer with 10 years of experience who just spent 3 years building for dead platform that has to unlearn all that BS for the new thing. Or somebody who's fresh out of college, never learned wrong thing, and is excited to go all in on right new thing. Which of these people is better off? Very obviously, these ones. The people who don't have to unlearn the weird ways that they did things in the past and can just dive in fully on the new way of doing. So this is obviously about mobile, but let's talk about AI dev. Imagine a developer who's been coding for 10 years. They used to be a big Sublime Text person. They moved to VS Code, and now they're all in on Vim. They became a hardcore NeoVim person.
Vim LARP has been succeeded.
They've been building for all sorts of different things at their job and realized that this AI stuff probably matters. So they put a lot of time into their custom config, trying to get stuff like, the classic Copilot working in Vim. Worked really hard to do that. Started using stuff like SuperMaven. Tried their best because they cared so much about their developer experience and their use of their editor that they wanted to do everything through the lens of Vim. Now, all of a sudden, we are using agents in our terminals and our IDEs and all these other places to generate.
That's exactly why I low-key stopped using Zed. As much as I loved the experience of using Zed, it just felt like, number one, support the dev tools was kind of bad for specifically what I was doing, which was like Flutter. And also the fact that their extension support does not really support like built-in like extension-based actual dev tools for languages. So I honestly just ended up switching to Cursor, which is like, okay, it was like a 10 times better ecosystem for, first of all, right? I had better extension, all that stuff. And the AI features was like just better. And of course, Zed is improving in that and adding AI features, but it's still not as prevalent as it would be with other ones.
Generate all of that code. And they are fighting tooth and nail, pretending that none of that matters and that they are still way better. But now they have to deal with it now. Maybe 6 months ago they didn't, but now these tools are good enough. If you're not using them, you are definitely falling behind some amount. Their willingness to unlearn all of their way of doing things for long enough to embrace these new things is way lower. The 10 plus.
And I also feel like as a creator, I've kind of been forced to not fall into this pathway. Because like every time I'm coding on stream, somebody's hit me up, why not using Cloud Code? Why not using Open Code? And I'm like, bro, okay, yes, I know about all of this stuff. I'm like, bro, I guess I'm pressured to do this now, right? So being a creator is kind of giving me like the factor of like everybody wants to use the next big thing. And I'm like, okay,
years they have of experience is hurting them now. And everybody's saying I'm sneak dissing Prime. No, I actually love Prime for this reason. I think Primeagen is doing a great job of challenging his notions and not letting his way of building things traditionally keep him from trying out new things.
Yeah, yo, Prime is always learning something new. Like every time I'm looking at his streams, he's always doing something way different. And I'm like, bro, this guy's like constantly improving, even though like he's not employed. Technically, he's just like doing YouTube, right? He's constantly at it.
For every person like Prime who's actually trying to figure out why we're all so hyped, there are literally 100 plus that have no interest at all, that are coping and running in circles claiming that everybody's doing slop and they're the one doing things right. And that same person also sucks at communication, so you can mostly ignore them. But you're not that person. You're fresh out of college. You're really excited to try out all of these new things. You're playing with new stuff. You're doing whatever you can to accelerate your own stuff, your ideas. You got into code, some part because you want to make money, but some part because building things on a computer seemed fun to you. At least I hope. If you're just here for the money, go somewhere else.
See what I say all the time? It's a labor of love, bro. Like, if you really are here for the money, you kind of cook like genuinely.
My channel's not for people who are just using software to make money. We love this stuff. And I like programming, which makes a lot of people question why I like this AI stuff. I like programming because I like the problem solving aspect and I like building useful things for myself and for others. And with AI, all of that's gotten way better. So imagine the person who just loves their BlackBerry, who's been building apps for BlackBerry, who dedicated their whole life to the BlackBerry ecosystem. Obviously, that person is going to be useless when the company needs to build a phone app. That's kind of where we're at now, too. These people who have 10 years of legacy way of building that are deeply attached to each individual piece of the software stack they use, of the editor that they build in, all of those things, that person is not going to embrace this stuff without a lot of incentive to do such. And they also probably have less energy at this point too, because they were trying all
When you see the 700K Netflix job, you gotta forget your stuff and build Netflix.
sorts of new things early in their career. They slowly settled on what they have, and now they're not as interested in trying new stuff. That is not the case down here. Somebody who's fresh out of college is not going to be unwilling to try a new editor. They're not going to be unwilling to check out these new dev tools. They're not going to be unwilling to explore these things. In fact, quite the opposite. They might be excited about them. They might be trying all sorts of new stuff. And that's one of the things I want to encourage. On one hand, when you're doing your coursework, you shouldn't be using AI to cheat. I highly recommend this guest, and the link will be in the description, don't worry, if you want to use AI correctly in class. But the harsh reality is that if you're only coding for classwork and you're not doing anything else outside of it, you're probably fucked. So to go back up here,
What did I say, guys? What did I say?
what you should do instead is use the new tools to do cool shit. I don't mean you should use it to cheat on your work, but maybe if one of your assignments in class was really cool and you want to build it into something more thorough, you can work with some of these new AI tools to push it further, to build something bigger. Maybe there's a club in school that you really like that needs a better way to keep track of its balance and its budget and what people are doing for the club. Vibe code an app using these new tools to try and make that useful. I'm at the point where in an average work...
Yeah, like literally I started playing Hytale on release, and I was like, oh, I wanted to make a build and I need to make a block palette. I was like, oh wait, there's no block palette app for Hytale because Hytale just spawned in. And I was like, you know what? I'll just spend a couple days building an app for that. Wow, crazy. I spun it up in 2 days, and I just learned a bunch of stuff about Claude Code, how to use convex, all these different stuff. And although this app has zero users, I learned a lot about all this new tech that just spawned in, which is really, really impactful. So have more spontaneous projects, I would say, because it's much more easier to just create. The buy-in to create software now is the lowest it's ever been. So why are you not creating more software? Genuinely.
Workday where I'm actually sitting and doing things.
This AI stuff is gonna start replacing old devs. New gen coders will just be way faster and better with AI. Yeah, that's the thing. And I think the important part is to be able to balance those two of knowing how to program raw, but also knowing the benefits of AI and how it can speed you up in your process of development.
Things for my job, for my channel, for my companies, for my products. I am vibe coding 1 to 2 new apps from scratch a day to just experiment with ideas, try to solve problems, build things in the background. Even now, as I'm streaming, I'm working on a project to help me find and identify project ideas and video ideas based on things being posted on HN and on places like Simon Willison's blog. And I'm going to compare that against my channel and use an AI agent to compare and contrast and find ideas that I might not have covered yet that could be good topics for my channel. I just build random shit like this all the time. When I have a theory or an idea or some question I want to answer, I love using these tools to build all of this stuff. One more borderline...
I'm definitely going to work on building more analytics tools for my channel. And we'll see how that goes, because I have a lot of questions.
Essential thing that, especially in college, but especially if you're not in college, is essential to everything we talked about here. Collaboration. Most of your coursework...
This is what I'm lacking on. This one thing is what I'm heavily lacking on. Most of the stuff I've done is all solo, right? So I'm definitely going to be trying to collaborate more with more people over time. But yeah, this is what I'm actually buns at.
It's going to be individual. Things that you're working on independently, yourself, like your tests and your homework. There will be some amount of coursework that is hopefully collaborative, but that varies a lot depending on the school, the program, and many other things. Your job isn't just to take an issue and write code. Your job is to be a member of a team. And working with other people is essential to being successful in this field. Getting good at collaborating is key. Collaboration can be all sorts of different things. It can be mentoring earlier students and helping them with their homework. It can be building things with your friends that are useful.
Go get into some hackathons to find people to collaborate with. Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of hackathons, and oh yeah, I forgot hackathons are collaborative. Okay. If you don't count hackathons though, if you don't count hackathons, then you know what I mean?
To the clubs that you attend. It could be making a project with a few friends to help you keep track of stats in a video game you play. It could be going to hackathons and building things from scratch at those. Hackathons in general are really cool. Finding opportunities to
Also, guys, small shout out, but I actually am one of the organizers for Hack the Nest, which is the largest high school hackathon in DMV. So yeah, y'all pull up when we're coming. I think we're doing another event in May or March. I don't remember, but May or March this year. Y'all pull up, will be fire. And again, if any of you guys want to be like judges or whatever, just hit me up in my email and I'll get that sorted out. So yeah, the small plug right there.
Will help you level up your skills as a developer so that you understand what it's like to actually have a job. And even more importantly, it'll help you make connections that'll be essential in getting jobs in the future. To this day, despite the fact that I've been coding for 15 years, a significant portion of my coolest opportunities come from my friends that I went to college with. People like my CTO and roommate, Mark. I met him in college. We actually didn't interact too much in college. We were just part of each other's rough friend groups from the other things we did, but we ended up very aware of each other and what each other was good at through the connections we had as we collaborated with other people in each other's networks. So when he moved out here, he was looking for a place. I knew him pretty well. I suggested he considers my extra room. And since then, we have been best friends building everything we build together. These are connections I made through college, through collaboration, both directly and indirectly. And those
I think that's what I'm trying to do. I should definitely, because all I do in college right now is sit inside the house. I'm sorry to say, but I sit inside my dorm and I code, I play video games, and I go outside to eat and go to class, and that's pretty much it. So I'm trying to like expand my space and do more outside of my chud lifestyle. But yeah,
types of connections are essential to being successful long term, because when you are eventually looking for a job, if one of your friends from college that you built things with is on a team that's hiring and they know that you're pleasant to work with, you get to skip that whole pile of shit resumes and go straight into the interview. Those types of things are essential. It's not what you know so much as who you know is the common phrase, but that's very real. And you're starting to build up who you know in your classes. And this is why it's even more important if you don't have courses to find ways to collaborate. Build useful things. Find other people building useful things. Find ways to work with them. Find Discord servers to hang out with these people. Find projects that you could be useful to. Just building things.
That's exactly why I created my Discord, guys. Y'all hop in, come chat about coding. Yes, self-promo.
People will help so much. Mickey's hanging out in chat. If you're not already following his channel, definitely give it a look. He's had a couple really cool jobs, including Convex, one of my favorite companies in the space. And as he just said, he didn't interview at Tempo or at Convex. It was the companies reaching out, asking if he wanted a job because he made a splash in the spaces they were in. They saw him and they were interested in potentially working with him. Those
Imposter syndrome keeps me solo. Damn. I would say, like, the thing is that imposter syndrome is kind of counterintuitive because right now, what I always think is that I never want to be the smartest person in the room. You never, like, you always want to be someone who can learn from other people and, like, improve upon that. And that's why I've been trying so much to change my space, and that's why I even created this channel, because I'm not the smartest person in the room. Y'all are probably, like, more smarter than me sometimes, right? So, like, I want to be able to, like, not be inside of my, like, little bubble and know the stuff I know. And that's why I watch people like Theo, Primogen, and all those YouTube videos, because, like, there are people with way more experience than I do, and they know a bunch of stuff that I don't, right? And having that experience and insights is really, really important.
To be the coolest opportunities. And you get those by being useful and building trust with people way earlier. And you don't do this expecting every single one of these connections to come out and be useful. You'll probably only have one useful one for every 10 to 50 people you work with. But the goal is, again, to increase the odds that things go well for you. We're trying to stack the deck. The more cards you draw, the more cards you put in the deck, the more outcomes that are positive.
Hey, see what I say? The three maxes. If you max out your probabilities, the chances you get it is, like, more important.
Exist within it, the more likely you are to have a good outcome. If you make 2 friends in college and neither end up getting a job or on teams that are hiring, you're screwed. If you make friends with 20 devs in college and 3 or 4 of them end up on teams that are hiring, your likelihood of getting a real job soon is way, way higher. And if you find yourself jealous of that super social person that you went to college with, that like was on the football team or whatever, barely knew how to code, but got a job fresh out of college, this is why. They made the connections and the friendships, and they were pleasant and easy to trust and work with. Even if the work was bad, they made it easy to do. The easier you can be to work with, the better chance you have at getting work. I have a whole video about luck surface area that goes deeper on this idea, but you really need to be focused on increasing the likelihood that a lucky thing happens. Because in the end, getting a job is luck some amount. So the more opportunities you have to
tap into my Blue Lock video.
Have that lucky thing happen, the higher likelihood you have to succeed. On that topic, here's one that's a little harder to describe that's very, very valuable. Be useful. This is tough because there's two sides to it. There is...
See, I desire to learn from others. Anxiety is what messes me up. If I'm the smartest person in the room, no one else is in the room. Yo, wait. That might be the best spinning around that quote I've ever heard. I would say it's definitely anxiety. You have to get over it a little bit. So it's a lot of exposure therapy. As somebody who, like I said again, like post-pandemic, I was really anxious about stuff and insecure about myself. The best thing to go about is just like do more, go outside more, experience more things, and litmus test yourself to the point where like stuff that would get you scared previously is not scary anymore, right? And overall, like doing stuff like, for example, participating in your hobbies, working out, like diversifying your life, having things that build more confidence into yourself will just overall make your life better.
The being useful part, but more importantly, there's the understanding how to be useful part. You don't know what useful is until you've experienced it on the other side. And you get there largely by doing things. Here's an experience that you either have or haven't had, and which you fall on will tell me a lot about where you're at. You're working on a project, you have some weird error happen when you use this specific library. You have no idea what's going on, so you Google search it. The first two results are useless, but the third one is a random old GitHub issue where the person reported the problem, and then 3 months later, somebody else said, hey, I have this problem too. Here's how I solved it. And now it's been 3 years, and their answer kind of works, but is also out of date and not supported. But at the very least, you unblocked yourself by seeing that. If you haven't had an experience like that at some point, you're not building enough. You need to go ship a lot more. Something you'll learn is there's a lot of valuable knowledge and information around the web from other developers over the last...
This was me trying to figure out like my line simplification algorithm for Icarus, because like whenever I would draw lines, it would just look like dog shit, and I would spend hours like I got the point where I was reading like research papers, figuring out how to get smooth lines, and it was absolutely crazy.
Past many decades, working on things similar to you, running into problems similar to you, using technology similar to you. And here's the kicker. Those people are also similar to you. And if you can relate to them and you can understand them, you can very quickly become useful to them and then eventually become friends of theirs. So if you do have issues like that, if you have a problem with a tool you're using and you find one of those old threads and the information in it is mostly right but kind of out of date, figure it out, fix it, and leave the comment that unblocks the next person. I've legitimately hired
Oh my God, I do that. Okay, guys. I'm gonna give you a long backstory. Okay, so it's like earlier last year, 2025, I was playing Valorant and I had an issue where Valorant, whenever I opened it for like 30 seconds, my entire computer would just crash, right? And so I post on Reddit like, yo, does anybody experiencing this issue? Nobody responds. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? I hit up Riot, like support. They literally ghost me, don't give me any info. And I'm searching all over the internet for like about a week until I finally find a solution somewhere from someone for a different game saying that, oh, yo, why don't you just update your BIOS, right? Boom, bam, bop. I update my BIOS. My computer works. I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, was it really that much? And then so I go on Reddit. I go to my original post. And then I literally go there and I document the entire process of how I did it. And till this day, right, I still get people hitting me up like, yo, oh my God, thank you. You saved my, like, you helped me, like, fix my Valorant or whatever, right? So, like, look at this. 12 upvotes with, like, 500K views. Like, look at this. Like, people are actively viewing. So, like, I feel like it's very, very important to be that one person that saves somebody else, right? Like, to me, that feels very good. To be like, oh, my issue that, like, caused me sleepless nights won't cause another person sleepless nights, right? Which is really, really important. And, of course, I reported the issue to Riot. God knows if they implemented them in the troubleshooting steps. I can't tell you. But, yeah.
Buddy, because I recognized their username from a GitHub thread where they solved a problem that I was having. I know it sounds crazy, but I've actually done that. It wasn't as direct as I recognize your name, you get a job. But when they hit me up about potentially working with me and their username on Twitter was the same as their username on GitHub, and I recognized them, I was like, oh shit, do you use this library? They're like, yeah, I'm in the issues for it all the time. That was a huge trust builder because it meant that this person isn't just hitting me up with a random cold resume. They're actually in the weeds doing the shit, and they understand the same things I understand. They spend times in the same places I do. When I am hiring as an engineer, I'm not looking for people who feel very different from me inherently. So the more you can be in my spaces and do the same things I do and breathe the same air I breathe, so to speak, the easier it is for you to get that job. Note things that I didn't say here. Pull requests. I'm not saying you need to go
Oh my God. What did I say about the pull request drama?
contribute all sorts of slop to random GitHub repos. In fact, nowadays, that's kind of a bad look. I also didn't say fill GitHub with all sorts of random open source projects with 0 to 1 stars. What I did say, very, very explicitly, is spending time in the Issues tab. Being useful in issues is one of the best green flags I can see from a developer. If I go check your GitHub profile and what I see is you opening detailed issues with clear reproductions on the problem you had so that somebody could go solve it, and I see you commenting on existing issues with useful information, and then I see you hanging out in the Discord communities for these projects, answering people's questions, linking them to the right sources, and then I see you hanging out in my Twitch chat, like a lot of these people are, dropping me really useful resources throughout. Like Maria here, just linking a video I was referencing to somebody that was based on an article that was written based on my video. It's so surprisingly easy to be useful, but you need to understand what useful is. And the only way you know what useful is if you're doing shit. You don't know what a useful issue is compared to a useless one until you've seen both. And one helped you and one didn't help. You don't know what a good answer to a question is until you've seen them happen in the Discord server.
It's like a professor who said, comments are for your replacement, don't bother. Oh my God, wait, that's actually peak.
Or you've asked one or two of them yourself. You gotta be in the trenches to understand the trenches. And once you understand them a little bit, you'd be amazed how quickly you can become useful. One of my favorite interactions I ever had that happened in my Discord, pretty sure it's Roy. Roy, thank you, Krish. Legend. Again, the people who hang out here a lot and whose names are associated regularly with things that are useful become my favorite people. The moment Krish needs a job, I will hand him to any company interested because he comes in and answers the, like, if I can't complete the thought, he can because he gets it and you get the idea. So the example I want to give is somebody from my community named Roy. Roy very quickly became one of the most helpful people in the community, despite the fact that he didn't have a software dev job. He was effectively doing semi-technical customer support and was building things on the side for fun. This is Roy. Sorry for calling you out like this one, man, but you are the literal golden example of what I'm describing here. It's also worth noting that Roy was a career shifter. He did not go to school for software development, as far as I recall. He was working in other spaces and teaching himself how to code on the side. And through that, found my community, had a couple questions, really liked the way we were building, and very quickly became the #1 question answerer in my Discord. After a few weeks spent there, he started to get the things we built and why we built them that way and internalize these concepts and quickly realized he could just answer the questions.
See, that's why I think it's really important to be in the spaces. Like you've got to live and breathe this stuff, like genuinely, because there's no other way to acquire that knowledge. Like you just got to be there. Right. Eventually,
another dev that you guys might have seen on YouTube, Melky, started hanging out in my server as well because he was starting to use my stack, the T3 stack. And he had questions about it, in particular, some weird things he wanted to do with TRPC. Roy answered his questions in my server very quickly. Afterwards, Melky started DMing Roy, asking him questions about these things because he wanted to go even further and found Roy to be really clear, concise, and useful. Melky randomly hits me up a week or two later saying, holy shit, Roy is one of the most useful people I've ever talked to. He's so helpful. To which I respond, yeah, isn't it crazy that he doesn't have a dev job yet? Melky's response to this was one of the funniest messages I've ever gotten. ... You're joking, right? Wait, you're not joking? What the fuck? I thought he was at least 10 years my senior. What do you mean he isn't an experienced developer? What do you mean he doesn't have a job? What the fuck, Theo? Which I then screenshotted and sent to my friend who was hiring at Clerk, and sure as shit, Roy now works there. If you ask anybody who's worked or works at Clerk about Roy, their response is going to look something like this. He's now a knowledge well within Clerk. Everyone loves working with Roy because he just cares to be helpful. And he felt so grateful to the community for helping him learn that he paid it back 100-fold and is now a golden example of how to do this. Nice. He used my community and space to learn, and through that process, learned things that others hadn't quite learned yet and could use that to be useful. He immediately paid forward 10x what he had gotten from my space. I would argue he barely got anything other than some names of some cool technologies, but became one of the most important people in said community very, very quickly. And it's not that hard to do. Huge shout out to Roy. He more than deserves all of his success. But more so than me or other YouTubers, I think Roy is the model you should be looking at for how to do well in the fast, quickly changing tech landscape. So what does it look like to do this now? Obviously, people ask AI more and more questions, and they ask Stack Overflow less and less. So a lot of these opportunities aren't as visible as they were before. But believe me, there are still plenty of them. There are so many repos that have lots of issues on them that don't have a good reproduction.
I know one issue. I know one repo. This is my my guilty pleasure. This is a software called Cap, and it's a alternative for Screen Studio in Windows. And of course, I don't have the energy to go into the issues and actually try to like look at them, but this app is so buggy, but it has so much potential. Like I can't use this app without crashing. Like, look, genuinely, I can't use this app without crashing, without desync, or without whatever. So I think it would be honestly a great starter to like figure out what the fuck is going on here, because this is really just an app that kind of has the potential to be very good, but just has a lot of stability issues. So yeah, if you guys are looking for some free bones to go ahead and pick, this is it right here. So yeah, let's go back to the video.
If you are working with a tool and you run into a problem and you find an issue that's already cut for that tool that doesn't have a reproduction, it doesn't show how to replicate it, it purely shows a vague error message about the same thing you had, go in there with a reproduction, spin it up on StackBlitz or make a new GitHub repo that is very simple, minimal example that showcases the issue. This shows so many different skills. It shows that you're resourceful because you found this issue. It shows that you're not trying to waste people's time because you're trying to make it easier to solve the issue. It shows that you're not just trying to get a random drive-by PR, because a PR filing might be with the goal of getting merged. Nobody's commenting on an issue so they get credit. They're commenting on issues so the issue can be resolved. And it also shows that you understand the problem space well enough to reduce it to a very easy to see version of the same problem. If you can come in and say, hey, I looked at this, these 3 things didn't solve it, here is a simple example that showcases the problem, you bet your ass every maintainer on that project that sees it is going to remember your name and like you. And it's not that hard to do that. Or if you're on Twitter and you see somebody having an issue with a thing, reply to them or DM them offering to help. Or you see somebody in a Discord server asking questions about a thing you just had to resolve yourself. Tell them how you did it. Every time you have a problem, someone else is going to have the same problem.
Yeah, and this is a really important thing, and I think this has been really impactful in the way I've been able to expand my surface area and stuff. Like, take for example, when I was working on Icarus, specifically in Flutter, to get rotations working in Icarus was kind of a doozy because I had to use the transform.rotate library, right? And the thing about like the way these like abilities rotate right here is that the actual origin point is exactly right here. So I had to specifically use the function that set a origin point right here. And I did a calculation, all the complicated math to get that done, right? And for some reason it wasn't working. I was like, okay, why isn't it working? I was confused. I was working on it with days. I was in a Discord server with all the Flutter devs, and we're trying to diagnose this issue, and we just couldn't figure it out until I went into the source code for this. Of course, it's going to be, I went to the source code for this, right? And there are 2 parameters there. There's one parameter called alignment, which is used to set like the alignment of where the origin point is going to be. So it defaults to alignment.center, which is cool. Okay, alignment. And then there's origin, which is what I was trying to work with is where I was trying to set a specific point I wanted to be the points where the origin is. Now, the way it actually worked in reality was that instead of origin to override any statement, origin was actually added to alignment. And this is like, okay, origin is added to alignment, but if you set alignment to 0, that's fine, right? But the thing is that when you use that function in its default state, alignment is already added. So enough yapping. I'm going to show you guys what it actually looked like in the right terms. So give me a second. It's probably in my resume actually. So let's go to me.diary.uk and it's going to be this PR. Because I did make a story about that. So if you go into here, let me go to, what was I yapping about? More yapathons, load more yapathons. Also, this was my first PR ever, like ever in the world. And I didn't know what I was doing. Okay. So, all right. So here's the explanation of the problem. So you have this right here. Give it a second to load. Okay, there it is. Okay. So as you can see with this box right here, so when I set the offset to 50-50, which is like the center of this, it works as expected, right? But whenever with the default behavior that was defined within the docs, it would look like this. So this is meant to be rotated at the center, and look at this one. It's like all the way at the edge. Why is that, right? Because alignment is automatically set to center within the constructor parameter. And you wouldn't know that unless you really look deep into the code, right? And when I saw it, I was like, that's bullshit. So instead of me to know that, okay, I solved the solution, I was like, you know what? I'm going to file a PR because there's no way somebody has to go through that same issue that I went through and I suffered through. And I know the solution, I'm not helping them. That just feels wrong, right? So I filed a PR and I changed the docs, right? Because like initially I was like, you know, should I just rewrite the way it's done? But I'm like, not really, because of the fact that, number one, if I rewrite it, it's going to have breaking changes for the people who already solved that issue. So it's kind of like, I don't want to do that. But I should definitely put it in the docs that it's overwhelmingly obvious that this interaction is something that happens. Right. So I go in, file a PR, spend like about a month like going through that. Look at all these like stuff I had to do. Absolute bullshit, by the way. But yeah. And then I finally got it done and got it merged. And I feel good about this. And other people are helped because of my frustration, right? So you've got to, like, every time you solve an issue and there's not enough documentation about it or not enough info, you've got to be the one guy that's like, I got to help other people, because that's how you get yourself into the space. And that's how you just help. Like, doesn't it feel good to help people? Like, look, genuinely, like, actually, right? So that's really, really important.
Do your best to remember it and try, and it's a weird way of thinking, try to write down the 2 sentences that would have saved you that time. If you spent a day or two trying to figure something out and then finally figure it out, think to yourself, when you're still in that questioning moment where you just figured it out, you have a really novel opportunity to take what you learned and try to find the smallest version of it that could have helped you a few days ago when you first had the issue. Try doing this, and maybe, just maybe, try writing it down, because in the future, you'll see someone else having the same problem.
What did I say? And
if you offer to help, you are suddenly way more trustworthy, way more collaborative, way more useful, and way more memorable. I remember the usernames of the people in my chat who answer questions for me, who bring me useful resources, who build me useful shit. You gotta be memorable, though. Being yet another resume on a pile of shit is not gonna get you a gig. But here's where things get really fun, though. If you do all of this, in particular, you really start to lean into these new tools to do cool shit, and you're seen as useful to others, you can kind of win against all of the levers. The hiring manager that doesn't know shit about tech sees you have the credentials and you know how to use Cursor and Claude Code really well. That's AI. He's AI ready. Cool. And then the actual engineers on the team are like, oh, I've seen him pop up in the GitHub issues for the things that we use. I've seen him be useful in our space. That's awesome. And then the exec at the company is like, oh, we're hiring AI native engineers, people who grew up using these tools that can modernize our company.
Holy
it's
Lord.
Bullshit, but you can lean into that. Use the lever they're giving you. Take advantage of weird statements like the one that the CTO of Netflix made here about how juniors are AI native. It's stupid, but take advantage of it. And I'm not saying cheat in class. I'm saying use these tools for all sorts of different things and use it to accelerate your learning, your growth, and your completion of things that you want to build. One last piece, because I realize I should bring this up more, because a lot of people struggle with coming up with ideas on what to work on, especially early when you haven't wired your brain in a way where problems are now things you can go build solutions to. Try turning your questions into projects. It'll feel weird initially. Just as a quick example, A question I had was which different AI models were better at writing. If I wanted to use a model to generate copy for my homepage or help me write an essay, which models are better and worse at this? Sure,
By the way, it's Kimmy K too, just so you know.
there are some benchmarks here and there, but I didn't like those benchmarks. They didn't align with my experience using the models. And I was also curious how they would handle feedback. If you give a model a review of what it wrote and told it to adjust accordingly, how well will it handle that? So I vibe coded a little app locally for having models generate essays based on a prompt, having all the other models give it feedback. It could then update the essay and then comparing all of those. And it was really fun. I learned a ton, and I made actual novel discoveries about how the different models behave in a writing scenario and how they compare to each other. It was a really fun project, and I learned a bunch and have a lot of fun things to talk about when I talk to other companies and people in the space. When you have questions like this, try building your own solutions. If you want to know how much faster Solid and Svelte are than React, build something to figure it out. If you want to figure out why it's so hard to scaffold a C++ project, build some scripting to automatically do it for you and see where the shortcomings and footguns are. If you want to see why people think Rust is so much better than Go, vibe code the same thing in both of them and see the benefits and negatives of each. Build things to answer your questions, and you will learn so much. Okay, I lied. There's one last thing. Be excited. I know this can be hard, especially if you're in that terrifying, oh my God, school's about to end, I don't have a job yet moment. If you've had something that was your job your whole life, be it you were in elementary school, then middle, then high school, during the summer, your job's to relax, and then during college, your job's to learn. When that's over, if you don't have your next thing, it can be scary. You can't let that feeling win. Excitement is essential for success, more so now than ever. And this is your biggest lever against those experienced engineers, the energy you bring in. The fact the whole field is changing is scary, absolutely. But it's also exciting as hell. You don't have to give up 10 years of knowledge to be successful. A lot of the people on this side are going to have to give up a lot more than 10 years of knowledge in order to survive all of these changes. You don't have to code for 10 years to learn how to build a solution to your problem. That's so cool. And because your brain works different, you'll see things differently too. People who were really into the Nokia, into the BlackBerry, did not know how to use a smartphone with a touchscreen keyboard for a long time, and they couldn't figure out how to build their apps around it because their mindset was so deeply baked into the old way of doing things. And the things are changing quick, too. They're already very different than they were when I grew up, and they'll be even more different in a year. Take advantage of that. Anything you can think of, you can build some version of. Maybe you can't build a multi-million user, $billion a year product that scales infinitely across every platform. But if you want to build Twitter for dogs, you can go do that with not that much experience, and you'll learn a lot through the process. Be curious, be excited, be collaborative, be in the trenches, do shit. And as long as you're here with us and you're hanging out with us and you're talking to people that work in
long story short, don't LARP. Don't LARP. That's it.
But every day, you'll probably do pretty well. I would bet pretty good money that you could measure the number of devs somebody talks to in a given week against how hard they are struggling to find a job, and it'll be a pretty linear relationship. If you spend more time interacting with devs, working with other devs, talking to them, hearing what they're doing, hearing what they're struggling with, collaborating with them to build your own solutions, answering their questions, asking them questions, you will almost certainly figure things out. But you gotta be there and you gotta start being useful. Balancing out how much you ask versus how much you share is a key part here too. Your goal should be, as quickly as possible, to give more than you take, to answer more questions than you ask, to be more useful than you are using. The best thing in the world you could ever do in one of these technical interviews is answer a question that the person giving the interview doesn't know or understand. Be collaborative, be useful, be energized, be ready. And eventually, you will start to build the types of trust you need to be successful. And one last thing, I would like to selfishly thank the companies that suck so bad at hiring that I can get the best engineers at the world at discount prices. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I pay my team fairly, to be very clear, but the fact that I can get these legends working for me because big companies don't even know how to interview them is a huge edge. And if you're interested in building something useful and making your own startup, you should take advantage of that too. If you're starting your own company, take advantage of the fact
Should we become a YC startup, guys?
everybody sucks at interviewing. Poach people from great companies. Take the opportunity to hire better than your competition because your competition almost certainly sucks at hiring. I think I've said everything I have to here. Had a lot to say. I hope this is useful to somebody. I know.
I mean, it was useful to me. I'm just gonna say my 2 cents and I'll be out. Yeah, this like low key agreed to a lot of things I thought about and a lot of opinions I had, and also enlightened me to a couple more things. And the fact that I low key need to collaborate way more than I currently am. I'm currently like sitting like always inside, so I gotta know more people. I gotta expand my surface area. Although I do know people from hackathon and stuff and have connections with people, but I need to connection max even more. And another thing is that I probably need to like I'm kind of whittling down, although I'm still excited, I'm kind of whittling down on my excitement. So I gotta like reignite that flame within me. Of course, it'll get better once I start going to college again, because like I was inside 24/7 and coding 24/7. So it was kind of like a buns thing to do in general. So I just definitely need to diversify my portfolio. In terms of um, other stuff, I would say, yeah. I mean, resumes have been cooked as long as I remember. So meeting and conferences are the way to network, as Alvaro said. So yeah, that's my take on that, and that's pretty much it. If you guys like this video, subscribe. I'm gonna be posting more videos like this. I'm gonna also post like a programming tier list video as well, and yeah, what else? That's pretty much it. Nice talking to you guys. Subscribe. More videos. We'll see you guys later.